Welcome back. Today I am just going to give you a few tips on how I organize my folders. Now everybody has a way of doing this, but if you are relatively new to saving a bunch of content, this is how I prefer to organize my folders. Do I do it all the time? Absolutely not. Should I? Yes. Should you? Yes. I've created a new folder in my drive called Social Sidekicks because that's what we're talking about here. I'm going to start with setting up some folders. I do like to number them. Numbers are your friend when it comes to naming conventions and setting up folders. So first thing I'm going to set up is an admin and branding folder. That's kind of the stuff that does not change. That's where you'll save your brand style guide, the PDF document that has what all your colors are, what fonts you should be using, that kind of thing, as well as any documents around the brand tone of voice and things like that. Then I'm going to go logos and icons. You'll have a folder just for your brand logos and icons. You might create subfolders depending on how many different types of logos and icons that you have, but I do like to keep logos and icons together. They're typically things that don't change. So 1 and 2 are normally things that don't change too much unless you go through a brand refresh. Then our third one should be photos. This is where you will keep any branding photos that the business might have had done, whether that's photos of the founders, photos of the staff, products, anything like that, and then you organize them inside there as you like. I'll show you in a second how I would normally do that. Then I would go graphics, so any graphics that aren't necessarily icons but that you use fairly regularly. This could be a graphic that shows off your values and you use the same graphic again and again. It could be email headers or footers that you use again and again. Anything that is not a photo, not an icon or a logo, but that you do tend to use again and again. So as you'll see so far, these top 4 folders are things that you will use regularly. They're things that don't change too much unless you're going through some branding changes. Now you can add a couple of other ones in there. Now I will start to add in things like, this is our unedited folder. Now in our unedited folder, I will always add videos, photos. So this is for our raw stuff. So this is where if your staff or your team members just want to drop in, say, a bunch of photos that they might have taken at an event or videos they've taken at an event, this makes it easy for them to drop stuff in and make a bit of a mess. You can always sort by date modified or by type, but it's a good spot to keep everything else nice, neat and tidy. Okay, so that's how you would then potentially fill that in. And then I would start to go, okay, social content. And in here, you start to organize by date. 2025. Jan 25.1. Now, if anybody's ever worked with a bunch of files before, you'll know why I like naming things like this. It's not as pretty, but it is easier to search and sort by. Now these will be where you store the things that you have created to be posted in that month. Sometimes there's going to be a bit of an overlap if you had something scheduled for the 30th and it didn't end up going out to the 1st. But it makes things easy to find unless they're things you're going to use again and again, in which case you would put them back in the graphics section or the video section. This is where you keep your posts for those months. And this is where you save them to once you're done with them. So I'm just going to jump into Canva, and this is actually from another tutorial, and then I'm going to save this one down, not as a video, I'm going to save it as a PNG. Whoa, not all pages, I'm just going to do the current page just for the sake of this. I'm going to find that folder again. That's not the right folder because I have a couple of folders called Social Sidekicks. My drive. This is going to take a second because my Google Drive. See, there's all the photos that I've got. Okay, this one is edited 2025. Say I was posting this one in May, I'd post it into here and then I'd go I don't like doing 2025 even though it's my habit. I don't know why. It just makes it shorter and simpler, especially once you start getting really long file names. And say I planned to post that one on the 8th. Carousel and then page 1. Now, date backwards. There is a reason for that. It does make it easy to sort. If you sort by date backwards, it is literally in number order backwards. So 250508 will be above 250509. It just makes life easier. So if I go into here now, I can see that one is there. It's got the date that I'm posting it, so when I do go looking for it later, if I'm looking for it from my phone, from another computer, from wherever I'm looking, I can find it quite easily there. It's also got a summary of what it's about and the type of post that it is. You've got your posts in order in the folder. You can almost see after a while what your month is going to look like once you've put a bunch of photos in here. If you're not using a scheduler that gives you a mock-up of what your Instagram grid is going to look like, you can go, oh, I've done too many bright green posts in a row, or I've done too many videos in a row, I need to break that up with some static posts. By putting them into date order so you can sort them quite nicely in here and naming them correctly, you can see what it's going to look like and where you might have too little or too much of a certain type of post.